Welcome back to another exciting episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Kristina Dudumas.
I'm Saba.
I'm Kristina. Welcome. Today we're going to be doing another edition of our series on comic book movies that could have been.
Yep, we're going to be continuing that series. As you know, if you're a listener, you probably caught our Daredevil episode, The Man Without Fear. Part 2 is coming out soon, so guys, keep an eye out for that. But today, Chris, what do we got?
So this time we have we're jumping into DC, and it's this project that would have started off everything for DC. This was slated for 2007, early 2000s. It's called Justice League Mortal. And what's special about this, it's, for me at least, it's a George Miller project. And it seems to be very, very ambitious. And like I said, this would have predated everything that the DC universe would have done. This project was inspired by the JLA Tower of Babel and Superman Sacrifice, which I think led up to Infinite Crisis, which is really cool. As you know, these movies didn't make it past production, but this spawned one of my favorite DC animated movies, which is Justice League Doom.
Yeah, it would have been fun to compare not only this movie once it came out, but to the comic book, especially with the countermeasures that Batman was using in Justice League Doom,
so
in the comic book, and also obviously within this particular movie, if it had ever made it to production. Now, not a lot of people know this, but there's actually a documentary coming out about Justice League Mortal. It apparently sparked a lot of interest from a fellow nerd, podcaster, YouTuber, a guy from a site, I think, called Geek Tyrant. And he's actually in the process of doing a documentary about it. So without further ado, let's jump into this thing.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, 4 colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Kristina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom with their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls. They fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
All right, so let's get into it. So the project in question this week is a movie that was set to be released in 2008-09. So anybody keeping count, this is before any Justice League movie. So this would have been the first Justice League movie to be released, and it was supposed to be headed by George Miller, written by Kieran Mulrooney and Michelle Mulrooney. And somebody run them through the cast before we get into it.
Sure. So we had Armie Hammer playing Batman / Bruce Wayne. We had DJ Cortana playing Superman. Chris, I love how you did this. Superman, Kal-El, and Clark Kent. I love when people use Kal-El. Love it. So DJ Cortana as Superman, Kal-El, and Clark Kent. Megan Gale as Wonder Woman. Adam Brody as the Flash. Stop swooning, Saba. Stop swooning.
I know, that's literally my middle school diary. I had a photo of him in it, and I would open it up and just look at him, I guess. I don't really
Hugh Keys-Byrne as Martian Manhunter. Now, Hugh Keys-Byrne was the guy that played Immortan Joe in Mad Max Fury Road.
He has to be in the movie with George Miller. Always have to have that guy in there.
He's got his regulars.
Yeah,
exactly.
Teresa Palmer as Talia al Ghul. Zoe Kazan as Iris Allen. I have no idea what she looks like.
Zoe Kazan. She's in The F Word. She's in The Big Sick. She's Paul Dano's partner. They write stuff together. She's really cool. She's a good actor.
Was she the girl that was with Daniel Radcliffe in The F Word?
Yeah.
Like the love interest.
Yeah.
Oh, she's cute as shit. Okay, cool.
Yeah, she is.
Santiago Cabrera as Aquaman. And Canadian homie Jay Baruchel as Maxwell Lord. And homie of homies, Common as John Stewart, the Green Lantern. And then the rest in peace, Aton Yelchin playing Wally West.
So right out the gate, this is a crazy cast. I really do think this cast is pretty... There's definitely highlights in here for me, I think, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, they were all casted, a movie that was in pre-production.
Yes.
This isn't dream casting.
Yeah. No, it was totally casted. Everybody was already kind of in the process of preparation. George Miller was playing mind games with the cast, apparently, trying to prepare them for their roles. Like he was fucking with Armie Hammer's head, intentionally scheduling meetings without him and having conference calls without him. So he'd get all suspicious, just like the Batman. And
what a douchey
yeah,
move, seriously.
Well, directors like to,
it, yeah.
they have their methods, right? They have their methods, and some of them are a little bit far, pretty out there, and some of them are obviously a little bit more, normal. But
and it's usually the most artistic ones that are like super extreme.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, they have to be eccentric people,
sure.
right? But I thought it was funny because it took Armie Hammer like a little while for him to even realize that he was in a game.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It took him like a few months.
Yeah, it did. It did. Yeah, it did.
Like this would have been the first first like superhero team up movie before anything, before Avengers.
True.
Before I think there may have been like a smaller like title before, but this would have been before anything.
Yep.
So if you guys are familiar with Tower of Babel, this is where Batman essentially creates these like contingency plans against members of the Justice League because he's a crazy old kook who doesn't trust his own team. But they get stolen in Tower of Babel. They get stolen by I think Ra's al Ghul. I want to say Ra's al Ghul steals it. We'll get into that later. But
did you just call Batman a crazy old coot?
Is he not?
He is very paranoid.
He's so crazy.
I will give you that. Yeah.
Okay. So I see Batman as kind of the ultimate, tactician, pragmatist, just being prepared for the absolute worst if it was to happen. That's how I see it.
What do you call that? What do you call that? That's crazy old
No,
coot.
it's not necessarily crazy.
Yeah, imagine if you did that to your friends. Like, imagine you were working on a project with some colleagues and you, like, dug up dirt on
just
them
in case.
just in case they betrayed you.
Like, you knew all their weaknesses. Well, imagine finding that file. Like, Saba really hates it when you leave dirty dishes on the desks.
And then footnote, I'm not actually going to use this dirt, but if she makes me use it, I will.
Yeah, cups everywhere.
Yeah.
Plus in Tower of Babel, like in the comic book, from what I can remember, it's an amazing story. This was Mark Morrison's JLA, and this run of JLA it lives on in infamy. Like every Justice League fan looks at this run of JLA as the standard for Justice League stories at this point. And Mark Waid was the writer on this book on the Tower of Babel miniseries, and it's fucking fantastic. And Chris said go and watch Justice League Doom, and I totally recommend that as well. But you got to read this comic book as well, because the countermeasures that get put into play by Batman against the rest of the Justice League are completely different in a couple of different instances in the comic book than, say, the Justice League Doom movie. And I think that's also going to carry over into this movie plot, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, I actually wanted to take each contingency and
sure.
I'm not like one for comparing, even though we do it a lot in this podcast. But I think it might be really fun to compare the three different versions of each contingency against the members of the league. And I have them all listed out, so I want to hear your thoughts on which one do you think would work and what you guys would do. But before we get into it, I just wanted to ask you guys how because this movie isn't just like Avengers where they all meet up for a common thread. This is like infighting. This is like Captain America Civil War type movie, and it as a first outing for a team up movie. And led by, remember, this is led by George Miller, so it would have his kind of Mad Maxy completely ingrained storytelling, because this is the thing I love about George Miller, is that he writes a story and you feel like you've been watching his movies forever because it's so complete in all these little details. What do you guys how would you have taken this project if it actually left the ground?
I think that it's definitely ambitious, because if you're a fan of the comics, you're a fan of these characters, at this age, I would have had seen the Justice League TV show and everything else. And, this movie, like I said, it was going to be right in the thick of it. No origin stories, no nothing. So I would for sure want to see it, but would it have a mass public appeal in that case? Was this the time, thinking of the time frame where superhero movies, the thing? I think the cast might have pulled people in, though, just like the cast itself. But I guess a lot of these people have made their names later in the day than that. But I would definitely be there to see it. I do think that I wonder because like the top three, like everyone knows Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. Those are the three that everyone knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Flash and everything else. I wonder. Yeah, I just wonder like the mass appeal, what it would be, especially with the climate not really being prime for superhero movies.
Yeah, Saba, the word that you chose, ambitious, I think is perfect because this would have been, exercise of ambition. Like this is something that is obviously being driven by, a vision that George Miller has put together from some of the more popular JLA stories that were available, or sorry, that were produced in Grant Morrison's run on JLA. And, I can see why they used it. I can see why they went with the Tower of Babel because it is a compelling story. And I think it takes Batman, which is a character that's very familiar to a lot of people and a character that is identifiable with a lot of people. He puts him in the spotlight, like making him a protagonist / antagonist in the story is a good way to kind of say that this is more of a Batman driven movie than say a Justice League movie. And I think that would have kind of played well with the mainstream. I think that would have played a lot better at the mainstream. That's my take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the movie would have had an audience because audiences would have already been familiar with the old Superman movies and the old Batman movies. And I think there was even Wonder Woman was a TV show and lots of people loved her. So I think that I think the audience would have been there. And definitely the story is compelling, and the fact that it was directed by George Miller, he would have been popular. So I definitely think there would have been a draw for it. And I don't know, it sounds like a great plot. Like I think this would have been a good
Yeah,
movie.
I think it would have been a good movie too, for sure. I think they were trying to do what a studio should do when they have a comic book franchise on their hands. It's go back to the source material, find the stuff that was really popular, take that content and then put it into a cinematic form. And I think that they picked the right story to do that. This was a very popular run, like I said, in JLA. And it was one of the more popular miniseries, and so popular that DC decided to adapt it into their animated film universe. So I don't see this going bad. Like it may have had trouble from a box office sales standpoint when it comes to the mainstream audience, but I think that the DC faithful would have been there in droves. So
one thing I also think though is if this movie came out and was successful at this time, it would have changed the landscape of the MCU as well.
Oh, for
I think
sure.
there would be like a speed up to get to this sort of
they'd
movie
be the one
with
trailing.
everyone in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they'd be the one like tailing DC. Yeah, for sure.
Because what MCU did was they had solo movies for everyone, and then kind of have everyone in Avengers. But then I guess with what they were doing was they were creating this Justice League movie, and then in my head, and I think what they probably would have done is created these solo movies off the first movie and then have them spread out. So it's just a different method, which I don't think either one is wrong really in itself, but it definitely would have changed them.
Yeah, I think I feel like Avengers had way more momentum, obviously because they had all these standalone movies and they were all just coalescing into this more of an event than a movie really. And this one wouldn't have had the same traction. Like I suspect that this movie wouldn't have done well, but it would have become a cult classic immediately, and then it would gain traction over time and propel DC Universe to unthinkable heights. You know what I mean? On release, I don't think it would have done as well as Avengers did because that was unmissable. And here, it's kind of like this weird niche topic. But I think it's way more ambitious and way more all in, I guess, than Avengers is. It's
for sure.
unthinkable. Yeah. Like you're doing the Avenger Captain America Civil War as a first movie. That's so ballsy. It's so good. But anyways,
no, it is. That's a good comparison.
Yeah. Let's get into the plot. Like we'll run you guys down on the plot, so you can see how messy this movie is. It's important to note that in this movie, the characters know of each other, but a lot of them are meeting each other for the first time. It won't really show up when we summarize everything, but yeah, just keep in mind there's no Justice League yet. They're all independent. They're all independent heroes, and they all just kind of come together in the plot. Okay, so
That's my favorite phase of superhero.
Yeah, me too,
films. I love
actually.
that.
Yeah.
So we open up with Batman using this satellite called Brother Eye, and it's this like spy network that he's got going. And it's important to note that in Doom he doesn't have this. It's something else. So it's like I think I'm pretty sure. Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Brother Eye in Tower of Babel, or is it new to this script?
No, I think it's new to this script. I think what they're trying to convey is that Batman has been watching the Justice League, like the Justice League members, without their knowledge for like so long, and that's why he has these contingencies. I think they're trying to, because their Justice League isn't formed yet, that's what this story is about, is bringing them together. I think what they're trying to do is trying to say that, you know, because Batman was monitoring them, this is why they all kind of came together, you know, and he's there as he also gets, you know, he also gets fucked up too. It's not just his you know, his contingency plans against the Justice League. He gets fucked up himself. So I just think that at the end they kind of need to come together to beat the bigger bad, right?
So anyways, Batman has this satellite spy system, and he uses it to spy on these other metahumans, and he leaves to go to a birthday party, which you'll find out later where he goes. But and then his satellite boots back on, like with him out of the room, and it gets hacked. And we jumped like right away to the Martian Manhunter, who's a detective here. I'm not really familiar with the Martian Manhunter having a detective alter ego. Maybe I don't read that era of comic book.
Yeah, like he's usually in like the government of some sort.
Yeah.
Wasn't he like a fighter pilot too, or am I getting someone?
I think you're getting him crossed with a Green Lantern, but I think so. John Jones has been a police officer, and I think he's been a detective, and yeah, I think that was pretty much his role. And then in Supergirl, they made him the head of the DEO, which is like the organization in the United States that deals with contact situations with aliens. So he's kind of worn a lot of different hats. I love Martian Manhunter. Just gonna throw that out there. But
me too. I like him in Justice League Unlimited for sure.
He's great.
That's really my only exposure to him.
Yeah.
But like I think it was like a crime that he'd never made an appearance in any of the movies that we did actually get in the DC.
Yep.
But anyway, so he's doing his detective thing. He's in a crime scene, and then he finds this seahorse. It's like this object, not a real seahorse. I think it's like some like memento. And he gets laced by an unknown substance. He gets set on fire, and this fire is like it doesn't get quenched. Like it's just ongoing, and it's his. If you guys know anything about Martian Manhunter, that's his greatest weakness. He can't handle fire. And it just lights his entire like outer layer in flames, and he runs out, and Flash and Wonder Woman kind of show up and subdue him and blast him with an unending stream of water. And then later, like they put him in Wonder Woman's conservatory, and
he gets like the spa treatment.
Yeah, the spa treatment.
Really? So yeah, there's two different versions of this. So in the Doom version, which is the animated movie, it's a similar poison with magnesium carbonate that inhibits his shape-shifting, while the magnesium fuels a never-ending fire. And Batman gives him aluminum oxide to counter that fire. That's a lot of sciencey words. As someone who took a lot of science in school, I should remember how to.
That's a lot more comic book.
Yeah, it definitely is. And in the tower, it's basically the same plan, except nanites instead. And you'll see nanites really pop up a lot inside the actual the movie as well. Like nanites is the thing.
Yeah, it was a new technology word that was kind of permeating across video games and definitely in pop culture. You heard nanites kind of like all the time. I remember in Metal Gear, it was all nanites. Like, I remember
it was this like solve all like word.
Yeah.
If you need a scientific mumbo jumbo, you say nanites.
Yeah. Just say nanites.
I gotta be honest. Before we get into like these comparisons, I have to say Doom overall had my favorite contingencies. The plot in this movie, I think, was better than the plot itself in Doom. Like the pacing of the movie, there's a lot of like nanites, and it's all kind of based around this scientific mumbo jumbo. Whereas in Doom, Batman really goes in depth into their psychology and fucks with them with their actual greatest weakness. But what do you guys think of this first countermeasure?
I like this one. I think this is very effective because, one, John Jones is terrified of fire because his family died in fire. And fire has a very adverse effect on Martian physiology. Obviously in the narrative of the DC universe, fire is John Jones's biggest weakness. And the fact that they engineered it so it was coming out of his glands when he sweats, not only was the fire causing him fear, the fear was fueling the fire, because when you're scared and you're at heightened anxiety, you're going to sweat like a motherfucker. So, it was almost a perpetual machine. Like it just kept producing what was needed to kind of keep the flame going. So I think that's fucking genius.
I think right off the bat, like, you could tell Batman's not pulling any punches, because it's like, not only is it is his, like, physically, like, his like body's greatest weakness, like, he also has like a psychological fear of it.
Yep.
And it's like right away you could tell that, like, this dude's not pulling any punches. He's crazy.
Batman is win the mission at any cost. He does not give a fuck, man. And it's been that way with him in almost every narrative, almost every iteration. I think Michael Keaton was a little bit more level-headed than the rest of the Batmans, and I don't think George Clooney and Val Kilmer ever really came up against anything.
Clooney.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And
No,
Schumacher.
That never happened.
Yeah, I know, you're
What?
right. You're right.
Nipples?
Bat
nipples?
nipples. Bat
I
nipples.
don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I think that this iteration, especially the comic iteration of Batman, is one ruthless motherfucker. Like he's not fucking around, dude. Like, if you're his target, beware.
Yeah.
Beware, dude.
Yeah. So anyways, Superman finally arrives on scene and kind of helps them subdue Martian Manhunter, and then for some reason this is weird to me, because nowhere in the script do they say that the seahorse means anything, but Superman sees it as a clue that Aquaman might be involved, so he goes to seek out Aquaman. And then you find out it was actually just a plot device to get Aquaman into the story.
That's so random. It's like you find like a seahorse stuffy and you're like, oh, okay.
Aquaman did.
That's odd.
Yeah, like that's like if you were to find like a little bat toy and you're like, this is Batman. This is him.
That's odd.
Okay, yeah. No, I was just going to say the materials in the comic book version and the Doom version, they're a lot easier to obtain. So magnesium carbonate is a supplement, and you can buy it like a health supplement. And you could buy it on Amazon. And aluminum oxide is something that's used. You could buy it at the hardware store. I don't know really what it's used for, but it's available at Lowe's and Home Depot. So
you would just have to go to like Home Depot or Lowe's and just take Martian Manhunter out.
Damn,
that.
Martian Manhunter just sounds so weak now. God damn.
So it would look a lot less suspicious too if like Batman got those materials versus like if he got
he was just redoing the Batcave. He was doing some renovations, and
just in case anyone's watching him too, like the police, which they probably
come on,
are,
guys. We know Batman isn't going to Home. He's sending Alfred. Alfred's going to Home Depot.
No, he'll buy Home Depot and then get it shipped to his house.
That's true too. That's true too.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Kristina makes a good point, because I remember in the comic book it was a lot more simplified. Footnote on the JLA series from Grant Morrison. It's like they had a team of physicists sitting down with them writing this run of JLA. It's fucking crazy, dude. Like, there are words in there I've never seen in my life, and this is supposed to be a comic book, and it's they deal with so much. They do it. Oh my god, it's like so complex and convoluted. Like, there's one mission where I think I talked about this. There was like some sort of tumor, and the Atom has to shrink himself down and go into the tumor, because the tumor is like growing its own bacteria, and the bacteria has become a civilization, and they have to go and like fight the tumor, like the people living in the tumor. It's him and Superman.
Yeah.
It's fucking nuts, dude. It is
they
so
did
crazy.
that in an episode of Justice League Unlimited, actually.
You know,
the episode when Thing comes back. Well, it was like the top of the episode. It was just like before the episode title. He was like killing a tumor like the old-fashioned way. Where he shrunk down. And he was like cutting into them with a sword. It's funny.
Yes, yeah. And I think Saba, you got this to look forward to. There is a similar episode in Young Justice as well, which is really cool. Okay. Oh yeah, but it's much more emotional. Like, this one in Young Justice is way more of an emotional payoff. Like, it's really hard hitting shit. It's really good.
Yeah, so let's progress. Let's move the time. The
Yeah, so
script clock
Aquaman.
up.
Yeah, so Aquaman's gone, or sorry, Superman's gone to see Aquaman in Atlantis. That's what's happened. Okay.
And Bruce Wayne attends the party, and Maxwell Lord, which like it's supposed to be some twist probably, but we all know Maxwell Lord
Yeah.
is a villain, and Talia al Ghul show up, and they kind of like, and she kind of like flirts with him, taunts him a little bit, gives him a kiss, and then you find out that Maxwell Lord is like his friend. Like, he doesn't know. Like it kind of shows you like the establishment of this universe. Like he doesn't
Right.
know yet that Maxwell Lord is like this villain, and it's mentioned that he owns this chain of restaurants that'll come back later. Foreshadowing. Let's see what I did there. So so they establish that Talia al Ghul and Maxwell Lord are the big bads here.
So before we move on more into the story, because this story is getting great, but Jay Baruchel as a villain, okay? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I can't get that scene in She's Out of My League, Out of My Head where he jizzes his pants. Like, that's just...
Okay, I have not seen that
Okay.
movie, but that's a great scene.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great scene to remember him by,
Yeah,
I guess.
so-
I guess it's memorable.
So I can't get that out of my head. Like, I don't see him being a villain and jizzing in his pants all at the same time. That's just not...
I mean,
That's just not a villain thing to do.
This
Jizz
is
in your
the
pants,
thing-
like, you know?
this is the thing for me. This is a younger cast. So this is a younger Justice
Yeah.
League. Because we're talking about like this is 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So most of these people are like in their 20s,
Yeah.
right? Like Armie Hammer, early 20s, Jay Baruchel probably mid, like around that age as well.
Yeah.
So I wonder too, like that feel that we have, because we're kind of used to getting a Batman. Like we've had a Christian Bale Batman who was like, you know, looked young, but was
Yep.
like 30s. And then you have your Ben Affleck and everything
Yep.
else. So even that, like the youngness of him
Mm-hmm.
and the youngness of both characters, I wonder how that would feel as well, having them played out.
Well,
you know?
Well, let's think about Jay Baruchel right now, just real quick, okay? Think about how young he looks right now, right?
And then think about it in 2000.
Think about how young he would
He's
be
a
in
child.
2008.
Okay,
Like,
but
like I compared to
I'm
Armie
trying to
Hammer.
remember what I know him from.
He
What
was
was
in-
Popular Mechanics for Kids.
Yes.
was
Yeah.
it?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Oh my
He was
God.
in Popular
Yeah, yeah,
Mechanics for
okay.
Kids.
Yeah.
Like that's a Canadian TV show. I don't
Yes.
know. if
Because I'm
you
like,
know.
I've never seen any of these movies.
He
but
was
I
in
know
Tropic
this
Thunder.
is.
Tropic Thunder.
Oh, I've seen Fanboys. Okay, Fanboys.
Yes,
and
he is in
Tropic Thunder.
Fanboys.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he plays
Okay.
he plays Windows.
Okay.
He plays Windows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's also he was in that show called Undeclared too, where he met Seth Rogen, right?
Oh yeah.
And-
yeah.
and
okay.
honestly, I
That's-
don't see that character as intimidating, threatening, intellectually
No, he's
superior.
like, he always does his goofy
Yes.
comedy.
I guess as well because he's going to be opposite Armie Hammer, who you know is this like tall, big, like, and I'm sure he would probably be like more jacked up for this scene as well. So like worked out and everything.
Yeah,
else.
he's an
And
alpha male,
you know,
dude. He's an alpha male, 100% alpha
yeah,
male.
and
But he does play Hiccup in How
Yeah,
to
he
Train
does.
Your Dragon.
Yeah.
he does,
And that's like a more serious
Yeah.
character.
yeah. But then you
Yeah,
don't
it's voice
see
acting.
him.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just his
but-
voice.
Well, here's the thing though.
But he
like,
can
if,
do
if we're
it.
taking these characters that kind of get aged down or kind of fit more of the modern day equivalent of them. If we're comparing, because the other famous one they did was Lex Luthor when they Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse
thing.
Eisenberg, right?
Yeah.
I like this better than the Lex Luthor transformation,
Not
and I'll
me.
tell you why. Because he's not the. I mean, it doesn't. It kind of doesn't make sense because he apparently owns a chain of restaurants, and he would be really young to own that chain. In the script itself, like he owns, I think it's called Planet Krypton, which you see actually Flash eating at.
Oh, so it's like a
so
Planet
he-
Hollywood, but for Krypton?
Sorry. Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he owns it, and it just doesn't make any sense if he was this like young entrepreneur dude. Because he'd be Jay. How do you say his last name?
Baruchel.
I just don't want to say. I just don't want to say it wrong.
Yeah, Baruchel.
Baruchel.
Yeah.
Like now would probably play this role well, but in 2008, I'm not really that sure.
also think about this as well, is that so Batman like leaves like whatever he's doing to go to this birthday party because they're friends, and I just also like the backstory behind their friendship, and
Mhm.
you know there's a lot. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know how well that could have been because
Yeah.
Maxwell Lord is going to be in
Yeah.
the new Wonder Woman movie. and
Yeah.
he's being played by
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal, who
Yep.
we also know as the Mandalorian.
Yep.
You know, and I guess that's kind of like the image I have, like an older guy because he's like a businessman and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
A
And it
suit
kind of makes
wearing,
more
like,
sense for, I
sloppy-
guess, you know, Bruce Wayne to make appearance for those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And-
it would be interesting.
And he was played by Peter Fatelli in Supergirl,
Oh.
the guy that was in Can't Hardly Wait.
And Twilight.
Oh, was he? Yes, he was. Yeah, he was in
Yeah.
Twilight. So he was played like Maxwell Lord was played by Peter Fratelli in Supergirl, and I just don't
Yeah.
see Jay Baruchel in the role of a villain. Like I just can't.
I can see him.
I
as
can't
Maxwell
reconcile
Lord.
that at all.
I actually can because he's like this. I mean, spoiler alert. Like he's you guys should know the backstory of Maxwell Lord. Like he's like this he's experimented on, essentially like he's a test subject, and I can see that definitely. Like he can put on that look. It's just him being that young when this movie would have came out.
Right.
Like it just doesn't make sense for the context of the fact that he's a business owner and he owns like that. I don't understand. But Maxwell Lord being, because you said before like he's not physically imposing. Maxwell Lord doesn't have to be like that's not really his thing. His whole thing is
Sure.
like, I don't have to fight you. I'll just mind control you. It's more of like this like dude who looks like a test subject is pretty much what it is.
Okay.
But I do agree it would have been weird given his age back then. And I do want to point out that I love this actor a lot. Like I think Tropic Thunder is one of my favorite comedy movies, and he's gold in that movie. It's so
Tropic
good.
Thunder's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the next scene, we're at that birthday party, and then it starts cutting to like the other superheroes. So Barry Allen, played by Adam Brody, who I think is good casting choice. We can
Me
get
too.
into this.
Good choice.
But I think
Me
it's
too.
a good choice.
Given his popularity back then too.
Yeah, given his popularity, given that I had him in my diary.
That's the main reason.
All these things added up. And also, this is one thing I will say about Adam Brody. He popularized like the cute nerd boy in like pop culture, in terms of like TV shows, like the OC, like his character there really did. Like honestly, because like you'll see a lot of these characters in like teen
Who
shows
just
and stuff like
snorted at
that.
That's not a real
And
nerd. That's not a real nerd. That's what nerds look like back then. Come on.
No, like I would say the TV nerd, because like he played Dynasty Warriors. He read like comic books all the time. He was a comic book artist in the TV show. He
Yeah.
also like was, listened to like Death Cab for Cutie, like you know what I mean? Like they kind of created this character for him.
Mhm.
Anyway, we can that's our other podcast where we talk about the OC for an hour. Anyway, so Barry Allen, he's returning home and meets up with Wally West, who is his nephew and who's played by the late Anton Yelchin, who again is amazing, really an amazing actor.
Rest in peace.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to research what's going on with everything. Then it cuts back to Batman. I guess he's left the birthday party and he's fighting a biker gang and gets lured into a theater where one of the bikers transforms into an OMAC, which is basically this like cyborg, like humanoid
Holy fuck. Okay.
creature. If you don't, and
he
they
beats
nearly
the
kill
shit
Batman.
out of him. Yeah.
Yeah, nearly kills him, only to be ordered remotely to stop by Maxwell Lord and Talia al Ghul. And they're revealed to be the ones that hacked Brother Eye. So does Batman know that they're the ones who called it off? Like, does he?
Nope.
Would he know
Nope.
at this point? Oh,
It just cuts to them. Maxwell Lord telling the OMAC to stop. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't even know Brother Eye has been hacked at this point. He doesn't know anything. So he's being played right now. So we
Oh, come on, Batman. Where's your security team?
So we get introduced to Green Lantern, which in this rendition it's actually pretty funny because in this rendition is Jon Stewart, and in Doom it's Hal Jordan, and in Tower of Babel it's Kyle Rayner.
Yep.
So it's actually like three different versions of him,
Yep.
which is cool to see. Yeah, so Jon Stewart, who's still an architect, because if you guys know, like they retcon his backstory to be Marine, I think. But this is back in the good old days where he was still an architect and he was working on his latest project. And as he's working, he like bites his pencil and he ingests a piece of it. And then he loses, and it has something in it. It's laced with something, and he loses control of his ring, and his own ring renders him blind, and he loses control of it, and he destroys his own office. And I could just see this epic scene where his constructs are like destroying his office, and then Superman and Flash have to go in there and subdue him. And in Doom, I just want to get to Doom really fast because this is my favorite contingency, and this is kind of why I like Doom way better than I like the other ones. In Doom, which is Hal Jordan, he gets lured into a mine because Star Sapphire was set up a farce that there was these hostages, these miners that were being held hostage by her. So he goes to save them, and then he gets hit. Like she hits him with the Scarecrow gas, which I think is ingenious for Batman to use his own villains' weapons against his own guys. And after he gets hit by the fear toxin, she fakes the death of all of the hostages. So essentially, he thinks he failed. and it breaks his will, and he just gives up on everything, and he just gives up on his on being the Green Lantern, and he just like stays in the tunnel and waits for it to collapse on him, which I think is like the superior plan.
I think so too. Yeah.
And in Tower, Frank, you want to take the Tower of Babel?
Sure. So basically, what happens to Kyle Rayner is very similar to what happens to Jon Stewart in this version of the movie. So in Tower, Rayner is also rendered blind by his own ring, but it's from a post-hypnotic suggestion placed on him during REM sleep. And as an artist, Kyle is more crippled by being blind than I think anybody else would be. It basically cuts his legs out from under him, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's kind of a sitting duck. He really doesn't have any way of fighting back or remedying his situation. So he has to get.
It feels weird because that means somebody snuck into his room, could have killed him or something.
Yep.
But instead, just like gives him a post hypnotic suggestion. That one's the weirdest one for me.
Well, in the comic book, it's Ra's al Ghul, right? So in Raz,
he wouldn't necessarily want to kill him. Yeah,
he wouldn't want to kill him. He just wants to fuck with Batman, right? Like he wants to fuck with the Dark Knight. Like he doesn't, like, he respects Batman, but he doesn't like, he has issues with Batman. Like Batman won't take over, for him as the Demon's head. Batman wouldn't give his daughter a baby. She had to steal it from him. She had to steal his sperm. He doesn't dig him.
Which is a weird ask for a dad, let me tell you. Yeah. I could never get around that. That's
also
such
like,
a weird
Batman,
thing.
take one for the team, bro. It's all good.
Yeah. Have you seen Talia al Ghul? What are you doing, dude? Shit.
I will say the Green Lantern, like the Jon Stewart one that happens, which is happening in the movie, the biting of the pencil. I somewhat like, it's almost a little comical, just like thinking about it. It's like it's also a bad habit. It's like, when people bite their nails, they put stuff on. It's like, this will make them never bite a pencil again.
For
like,
sure.
You shouldn't be chewing your pencil
for sure.
But right, doesn't it seem like, I know that the actual scene would play out in a different way, but just like him chewing on his pencil somehow, and like the lead getting, like, just the process of it, it would have to be shot in a way that, I mean, everything has to be shot away.
And
I find it weird that in the script, almost every contingency is kind of like incumbent on a type of poison. Like it's like almost every one of them is like Batman poisoning them and getting like a substance in them or a nanite in them. Whereas in Doom, it's actually like ingenious how he plays with people's biggest fears, and it doesn't always have to do with like poisoning them. Which is like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's more creative.
Yeah, Chris, sorry. No, you make a good point, dude. I think in Doom, it's a lot more, it's personal. It's a lot more personal, but it's also a lot more snares and levers and actual physical things being done to them, Like what he does to the Flash in Doom is actually quite ingenious. And the way that he has to get rid of it, right, is also a very physical thing. So it's, it's definitely very different. But before we move on, let's talk about Common as Jon Stewart, okay? And the reason I want to talk about Common as Jon Stewart is because Phil Lamar, the voice actor, he plays Jon Stewart in Justice League Unlimited and in Justice League, right? And Jon Stewart is always the smoothest motherfucker ever. Like, he sounds like Chef from South Park. Like, that's what he's like. Like, he's got this low kind of baritone, like, almost like fucking Shaft. You know what I mean? Like, he's almost how you expect Shaft to sound in a cartoon. And I feel like Common would almost be the same way. He'd just be like this fucking smooth, slick, like, super player
serious
type. Yeah, exactly. He'd be the player.
The other Green Lantern. That's why I like Jon Stewart. Like, Hal Jordan's will always be my Green Lantern, but Jon Stewart's like a very close second. Actually, for a long time, I liked him better than Hal because Justice League Unlimited is the best.
So good.
But like, what I like about him is that he's the only serious Green Lantern. Everybody else are like goofballs, and I think Common would encapsulate that a lot. You know what I mean? Like, he's the most in control Green Lantern there is, right?
Yep. No, he definitely is.
Not as like laid back. Yeah.
I do like the idea of Common as him, but in terms of like I guess because if you're looking at like Justice League Unlimited, like the the animated show, the guy who plays Dig on
John Diggle.
Yeah. I always thought he looked like him from like the cartoon.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But I think you're right, like Common,
including me.
Yeah. yeah, like he just has that look. But I have nothing. I mean, I have nothing against Common. He's very, like you said, very smooth. I mean, I haven't felt him or anything. That sounded weird.
Damn, Saba, you're starting to like show yourself a lot, eh? Like,
No,
Felt
I'm
him.
just saying. Well, because the way
Well,
I really enunciated smooth. I felt.
I was gonna ask
Sorry,
you what
Christina.
happened. I was gonna ask you what happened in Shazam when Adam Brody turned, or sorry, when Freddy turned into Adam Brody. I wanted to get your take on that.
I mean, I will always love Adam Brody. There's
Jesus.
a special part of my heart that like preteen Saba that will
Preteen-
always like. You know what I
Hilarious.
mean? You never forget your first heartthrob.
Hilarious. Okay, so Aquaman gets stung by a robot mosquito with a fear nanite that gives him aquaphobia. Genius.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like how can it? How
Genius.
do you do that? How is that done?
I don't know, especially when you're
Yeah,
the
that's
king
a
of
big
Atlantis.
That's a big leap that somebody can make a
'Cause
robot
you-
mosquito that
you could
stings
get
you.
You could give the fear nanite to like everybody. Like that's
Yeah.
a pretty like catch-all one.
That is a
make-
pretty good
or
catch-all.
just give it a death nanite. Why are
Yeah.
you going fear
A
nanite?
death nanite. Here's my question about the Aquaman contingency, especially in this movie. Did the robot mosquito swim underwater to Atlantis to sting him?
Oh,
or-
I'm sorry. I didn't put this in the notes, but when Soups goes to get him, he goes on this tirade about like how humans are polluting his water.
Oh, the surface
and
world.
how he hates
Oh,
him.
nice.
And then
Okay.
he like reluctantly goes. Oh yeah, this is actually a pretty big point. Oh, I dropped the ball on this one, guys. He reluctantly goes with Superman because he says because of her, and then in brackets in the script notes it says in brackets Wonder Woman. So him and Wonder Woman apparently had a thing. I just didn't add it because it literally is only that one scene, and
Oh my God.
it never gets mentioned again.
Okay.
So essentially, Superman uses Wonder Woman against Aquaman. That's why he goes to help.
So, going back to Aquaman real quick, this is being played by Santiago Cabrera, and Santiago Cabrera was in Heroes. He played the artist Isaac.
Isaac.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
In
He
season
played
one.
the artist. He's the
Ah,
guy that had to
yeah.
be all cranked out on heroin to tell the future with his
Yeah.
with his paintings.
Mhm.
Amazing
That
character.
was a cool
One of the best
character.
characters
So
in
good.
Heroes,
So good.
without a doubt. And I could definitely see him being Aquaman. He's, he definitely has a darker kind of vibe to him than say the Aquaman that we've gotten up until this point. Even in Justice League Unlimited, the Justice League Unlimited looks more like he'd be on a tour bus for like, for Whitesnake or something. Not really the king of Atlantis. Okay.
Yeah.
Did everybody get my 1980s rock reference there? Because I know
Nope.
that some of you guys are a little young for that, but no. Okay. Anyways, I hate when this happens.
I know who the Rock is.
No, I
know
said
who the
rock
is.
group, Whitesnake,
Oh, Rock Group.
White
okay.
Whitesnake. No, not
Oh.
snakes. White Snake. White.
No, yeah,
Jesus
I never heard of
Christ.
that band.
No.
I
Okay,
don't know who
so
that
anyways,
is.
So the Aquaman Justice League Unlimited is like a blonde. He's got long blonde hair. Like he looks like he looks like a rocker, right? And Santiago Cabrera is definitely he looks Latino, and I think Jason Momoa could definitely pass for Latino if he wanted to. So I kind of like this direction, and from what I've seen from the costuming, his costuming was very similar to what Jason Momoa was rocking in the Justice League film that we got in 2017. Hashtag Snyder Cut. And I really like that. And also the other thing I really like about this is Aquaman had his water bearer hand in this movie.
Mhm.
That's fucking cool as shit. Like I want to see the water bearing magic when I see Aquaman characters or I see Atlanteans. Like
Funny you say that. After he gets stung by the fear nanite, he rips it off because it's made out of water.
oh
So
really?
there
Oh,
you go.
does he really? He rips it
Yeah,
off?
he rips it off
Oh.
and throws it, and then
What?
the Martian gets a hold of it and realizes if he puts it on his body, it turns into a water armor, which
Yeah.
stops him from bursting into flames.
What the fuck?
It's such a weird scene.
That is so complicated.
Also, with respect to the fear nanite, I also read somewhere that it was an altered form of Scarecrow's fear toxin. So that's like what's in it. So there is like a chemical thing to it. It's not just like the nanite is just the delivery.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, Batman
Yeah,
is
okay.
Batman's digging into his bag of tricks from his rogues gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. He rips off his water hand. That's weird.
Yeah.
So they later used the power of Green Lantern with the telepathic guidance of the Martian to surgically remove the nanite. Okay. The power of the Green Lantern with okay. Aquaman wasn't in the other versions. Oh, right. He wasn't in the other versions.
Yeah, like this is the only
yes.
version that he was in. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, no, wait.
Was he in Tower?
Yeah, he was in Tower.
My research didn't
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah, he was definitely in Tower because they had to put him in a water tank.
Flash. All right, so that's a good portion of the league out of the way. We will make this a two-parter, so we have a lot of league beat-ups left. But yeah, so we're gonna end it off here. But before we go, I would like to thank you guys for your listens and your support. We really love making this content for you. If you could take the time and review us, please, on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, and Stitcher. That would really help us out. And also, like, we want to hear what you guys think. Like, if you like these sort of episodes, do you like this series? I think that'll do it for this part 1 of this breakdown. Please stay tuned for part 2. So this has been Kristina,
Kristina Didumas.
Saba.
And Frank McGuire.
Later, dude.
Peace.